Dobre, ideme na to. Dneska je 487. relaxačný tréningový deň. Je 19.3.2025. Začíname 19.53, píče sa 18.53 každého pol augusta. Máme klikoč žrutý 190, 80, 70 a 60 kliksterov. Ideme na hneď prvú sériu kliksterov, nech sa to teda dorazí. Dneska bol náročnejší deň. Dneska mu dáme zvukovú stopu. Sezóna vo flote za nami teda. A bol to náročnejší deň. A už bude iba náročné. Dneska je 487. relaxačný tréningový deň. Je 19.3.2020. Už nebudú iné dni. Iba náročné. Ja sa ty nám môžeš dať. A pozrime si do hora, čo bude hovoriť tento komik.
Come see us on tour in Hartford, Connecticut, Syracuse, Atlantic City, Levittown, Cohoes, Providence, San Jose, Toledo, Ohio. Go to jimmydore.com for tickets. So Trump is starting another war. He's bombing. I've ordered the United States military to launch a decisive and powerful military action against the Houthi terrorists in Yemen. Do you remember him running on that? Do you remember him running on? I don't remember him running on. Hey, by the way,
Gulf of America or Greenland or this?
Yeah, I don't remember him saying, "Hey, if you elect me, I'm going to get us back into those Middle Eastern wars at the behest of Israel," because that's what this is.
Also, one little note: they're not called Houthis, and they're also the legitimate government of Yemen, as voted for by their people, and not the puppet state that's in one tiny corner of Yemen. They're not called Houthis. You know that?
So I didn't know that. They have waged an unrelenting campaign of piracy, violence, and terrorism against American and other ships, aircraft, and drones. Okay, that's largely bullshit, but I'm going to explain it to you in a second. Joe Biden's response was pathetically weak, so the unrestrained Houthis just kept going. It's been over a year since a U.S.-flagged commercial ship safely sailed through the Suez Canal, the Red Sea, or the Gulf of Aden. The last American warship to go through the Red Sea 4 months ago was attacked by the Houthis over a dozen times, funded by Iran. The Houthi thugs have fired missiles at U.S. aircraft and targeted our troops and allies. That's like, after we bombed the shit out of them. You know, the biggest bombing campaign and wipeout of people was Yemen up until October 7th. Up until this most recent thing with the Palestinians, where they're ethnically cleansing and genociding them and just bombing mostly women and children, it was Yemen, and that was us doing it. We were doing it with Saudi Arabia. Okay, so again, this is all about fossil fuels. That's what this is all about.
Well, also,
and about Israel, and about greater Israel.
I don't know what the right name for the Houthis is because it's hard to say, but the Houthis, they pulled off the first successful naval blockade in recorded history without having a navy.
So anybody who knows their mythology knows the Ides of March are all about betrayal, right? And everyone who thought that Donald Trump was the anti-war president needs to realize that he is against the previous wars just so he could start his own. That's what this looks like.
Yeah, we're breaking up with our side piece, Ukraine, and getting back with our first wife, Israel.
That's right.
It was fun while it lasted, baby.
The Houthi attack on American vessels will not be tolerated. We will use overwhelming lethal force, blah, 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 the Chulkdaf, blah, blah, blah. Our brave fighters, blah, blah, blah.
It's interfering with Israel, that's what they're doing.
That says exactly. To all the terrorists, your time is up, and you're attacked. The terrorists. You mean the terrorists that we funded in Syria? You mean ISIS? You mean Al-Qaeda, the ones we invented? And ISIS.
You should check and make sure Bibi ain't funding the Houthis because he has a history of doing stuff like that.
You mean like Hamas? You mean the ones that Benjamin Netanyahu funded? You mean those terrorists? So now all of a sudden, so that's the game. Just so you get it right. The game is anybody that we want to bomb and kill, we just call them terrorists. Anybody we want to deport or we want to put in jail, we say you're a terrorist. That's how it works.
Well, you know that guy they're deporting, they used the McCarthy-era laws that they used on Jewish Holocaust survivors that were leftists to call them commies and deport them.
So that's the irony. The only difference between Donald Trump and Joe Biden in this situation is that Donald Trump is aware that this is going on.
He doesn't have to have Tony Blinken do it.
Right. So Yemen, here's from antiwar.com, U.S. airstrikes kills 53, including women and children. Trump officials are threatening more airstrikes as the Houthis, officially known as Ansar Allah. That's what they're...
I can say that. I don't know why I thought it was something. Yeah, I can remember. Ansar Allah, yeah.
They're vowing to a response.
Looks like you kids are getting drafted to go to Sandyland after all.
Looks like it. So I just wanted to show you this. So Thomas Massey says the military-industrial complex demands about $50 billion a year in war. As soon as we quit spending $50 billion a year in Afghanistan, we started spending $50 billion a year in Ukraine, just like I predicted. Watch where the next $50 billion a year goes when we stop spending it on Ukraine. The military-industrial complex is always hungry. Regarding U.S. activity in Yemen, I recently said to watch for a new military engagement to compensate for the pullback in Ukraine. The military-industrial complex demands $50 billion a year from our government above and beyond what's necessary to defend our own country. So that Thomas...
What about our best friend and also aircraft carrier? You never had a friend/aircraft carrier, did you? That's why you don't get it.
Glenn Greenwald says the U.S. has been bombing Yemen since George Bush 43. Obama massively escalated it by aiding the Saudi war there and bombing himself. Biden bombed the Houthis 1,000 times in 2024 alone. So this idea that Trump is like, they're attacking us. No, we've been bombing the hell out of them, as usual.
Well, look, once the Greater Israel Project is done, then we can stop doing this.
Then we can stop doing this. So here, let me finish this. Biden bombed the Houthis 1,000 times in 2024, all to protect Israel from its refusal to allow food and aid into Gaza. the reason the Houthis are attacking. That's why. So the Houthis have a brotherhood with the people in Gaza who are being slaughtered because they were the previous ones being slaughtered by the U.S. war machine. That's why. And
It's
so,
sad they haven't allied themselves with a greater colonial power like the others, and then they're just sitting there trying to be principled.
so when they were
assholes.
so when they were starving the people of Gaza and slaughtering them, the Yemen people in Yemen said, "Hey, we're not going to allow your ships to go and do commerce with Israel as long as they're doing this slaughter." So that's where that comes from. So that whole story Trump told you was made up. It was all made up to make the United States a victim. We're not the victim. Of course we're not the victim. Justin Amash says, I'll say it again, it is unconstitutional for President Trump to engage in acts of war in Yemen. It doesn't matter how appropriate you think it is for the United States to take on Houthis or terrorists or anyone. Congress has not authorized a war in Yemen. Engaging in war there is unlawful. After 9/11, they gave a blank check to any president who wants to do a war, so Congress doesn't have to vote on it. So we didn't vote on the war in Libya. We didn't vote on the war in Syria. We didn't vote on the war in Ukraine. We didn't vote on bombing Yemen. We didn't vote on Somalia, the Sudan. We're not voting on any of this. And that's so nobody can be held accountable. That's what this is about. So Glenn Greenwald says this is how the DC war machine keeps the United States on a footing of endless war, ensuring the coffers of the arms industry are always full and its own authority always increasing. What Trump vowed to stop.
The Doge cuts are nonsense, it turns out.
It turns out they're all distraction.
Whining about and defacing Tesla cars about.
It's a distraction.
All they did was take the money from the thing that I guess the Hillary Satanist cabal wants to do what Bibi Netanyahu wants. And they raised it $6 billion. So there's been no cuts.
No cuts.
It's all bullshit.
There's been absolutely, that's right. So Trump endorsed raising the military budget, $6 billion. That's all the cuts. So if we had, by the way, I want to say this to Glenn Greenwald, if we had to sit around and wait for congressional approval for every war that somebody comes up with, it would take at least another 45 minutes. Anyway, so this is from antiwar.com. A major round of U.S. airstrikes that hit Yemen on Saturday killed at least 53 people, including women and children. According to Yemen's Saba news agency, at least 5 children and 2 women were among the dead. Another 98 were wounded by the U.S. bombing, and the health ministry said many of the casualties were civilians, while the United States is claiming it killed multiple leaders of Yemen's Houthis, officially known as Ansar Allah. Oh, yay. Yay. We're fighting terrorists. The United
If you want
States...
SodaStream from being sold in the U.S., you gotta go.
Yeah. The United States is the world's terrorist. We bombed Yemen 1,000 times in 2024 alone, okay? A total of 40 U.S. airstrikes were reported to hit Yemen, primarily focusing on the northern Sada governorate. Strikes also hit the Yemeni capital. Targets that were reported hit included power stations, residential areas, and homes.
Dorazí a poslal série.
Military sites. We love hitting residential areas because they don't shoot back. And they make perfect locations to put new smart cities, just like they do here. The strikes marked the first time the United States bombed Yemen under the new Trump administration. Hip hip hooray. Hip hip hooray. The Houthis announced on Sunday that they fired back, with Yemeni military spokesman saying the aircraft carrier USS Harry Truman was targeted with 18 ballistic and cruise missiles, as well as drones. U.S. officials later told Reuters that the U.S. military downed 11 drones fired from Yemen and tracked 1 missile that failed in flight. The leader of the Ansar Allah, or the Houthis, said that in response to the U.S. airstrikes, both military and commercial vessels in the region will now be targeted by Houthi missiles and drones. So this is President Trump ramping up a war for no reason.
Houthis.
Well, I mean, for no reason that helps.
Their economy's hurting.
Doesn't help the United States. Doesn't help our people. Doesn't help a
Helping
worker.
a friend doesn't help you.
Doesn't
Helping
help.
your best friend in the Middle East,
Our
our only
best
friend.
friend, our only friend. President Trump announced the start of the bombing campaign on Saturday and said the Houthis must stop their attacks on shipping and U.S. warships. However, Ansar Allah hasn't targeted any ships in months. Since it ceased attacks once a ceasefire deal was reached in Gaza back in January.
Why is there always a nice little cherry on top of it?
So that's
Chicken
the,
sundae in my mouth.
so that's what so there it is.
Oh, that's great. I love the Hassanabi has kicked off Twitch for promoting the Houthis. The Houthis haven't attacked anyone after a ceasefire deal.
Yeah.
Wow.
Dobre, je to za nami. 487 relaxačný tréningový deň za nami. Bol 19.3.2025, skončili sme 20.09, píče som mu 19.09 každého podľa augusta. Segment trval 16 minút a 10 sekúnd, trochu dlhší.